Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mindful of your time, we're going to start now, even though hopefully more people will be joining us. And there are people on the line who've probably been waiting 10 minutes, wondering where we are. Welcome to the first live quarterly meeting for the Cleveland Community Police Commission in at least 2 years. We did have a live presentation last fall, but it wasn't a quarterly meeting. So thank you for coming, and it's good to see my fellow commissioners. I'm Louis Katz, co-chair of the commission this year. We've had a change in plans. The bad news is the monitors are not showing up tonight. They were scheduled to give their required presentation on their November semi-annual report. 2 days ago, we were told they could not possibly be ready. Since the report was filed in November, it's hard to understand what that means, but that's the only explanation we got. The good news is the monitors aren't here tonight, and therefore we can expand the time for community comments and input. I'd like my fellow commissioners to please introduce themselves. Reverend, if you'll start.
Good evening, I'm Pastor Edwin Moore.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Terry Echols.
I'm Dr. Meg Testa.
Commissioner Logan is the longest serving member of the commission.
Not exactly.
Not really.
Not exactly.
Gordon is older.
I made my first mistake.
Older I am.
It won't be the last.
Gordon Friedman, and I am not a doctor.
Are you the longest serving?
I am,
Oh,
by a couple of minutes.
apologies. Jeff?
Jeff Fulmer with the Clean Police Patrolman Association.
Okay, we will be
I'm back here. I know, we're social distancing, so you didn't know I was behind you.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Good evening, community. I'm Charmin Leon, representative for the Black Shield Police Association.
We hope to be joined by a couple more commissioners as the evening goes on. We are so pleased to have you. I think we are so pleased to be live after all of the virtual meetings that we've had these past 2 years. In all honesty, I don't know how that has impacted on the progress of the consent decree. If nothing else, it certainly has slowed down that progress. Our executive director, Jason Goodrick, is going to give us an update on consent decree happenings and Community Police Commission personnel and the like. Let me just say for those who are online, if you want to make statements or ask questions when we get to that part of the evening, please put them in the chat, correct? And they will then be read out later. Okay, Jason, thank you. On the audio? Okay. Apologies, trying to get through our streaming tech support to make sure everyone can hear us okay. And I just want to bring the community up to speed with what's happened in the consent decree, usually in a period of several months, around a quarter, since we do tend to put out information quarterly at live meetings. So I'll jump right into that. So the consent decree is a court agreement between the United States Department of Justice and the City of Cleveland to reform the police department. It is in its 6th year. It's entering into the 6th year in 2022. And so picking up in November, we had what's called the Monitoring Team's 10th semi-annual report that was filed and November 1st. And what that is a general overview of the city and CDP's status towards completion of all of the goals of the consent decree. That was going to be the agenda item for tonight, the monitor to come out and discuss the 10th semi-annual report. And unfortunately, they were unable to be here. So all of these documents can be found on our website at clecpc.org if you're not familiar with them. So starting with that, the 10th semi-annual report was put out in November 1st. The city responds with status reports shortly thereafter. On 12/2, the city responded with its 11th status report, so the numbers are not always in sync, so they're responding the 11th time. And what they did with that report was give a progress of summary of the entire consent decree. It's a good document to look at from the city's perspective. What they believe are the successes, where they still need to do work. And that brings it all the way up to the 6th year, from start to the 6th year. And the purpose of that document is what they call the transition document, for the new mayor of the city of Cleveland to have kind of a benchmark of where they're at in going into 2022. We're all aware that issue 24 was passed in November, the citizen ballot initiative to bring permanent civilian involvement in oversight into the city of Cleveland. That required some reconciliation with the consent decree. The city filed a document outlining some of the challenges they see with that in December 3rd of 2021. And one point I want to make about that, for those who are wondering, is that they are going to have future discussions on the consent decree related to how to reconcile the consent decree with the voters' wishes. But until that time, it's important to make a note, and it says so in the motion, this commission that you see before you is going to continue to fulfill duties required under the consent decree over the additional duties in issue 24. So right now, it's important to let the public know that while they're in transition and working out what is now Charter Section 115, this commission is still working, they're still doing consent decree things, and still putting in what needs to be done to meet the requirements of the consent decree and the agreement with the Department of Justice. So they're here, they're still working in the background, we still have work groups going, despite that. On 12/15, the DOJ responded to the city asking for more time. That time that they asked for extended till tomorrow, February 18th. So no one knows what's going to happen yet, but we may see some more information come out tomorrow about what the plan may be advancing Charter Amendment 115 with the consent decree. On 12/16, there was a policy update to community and problem-oriented policing filed with the court. It's the Division of Police's update on how they will handle community and problem-oriented policing, as well as informing the court how they will capture data related to community and problem-oriented policing. So how will officers document what they're doing out there, what was formerly called community engagement work, now a more advanced level community and problem-oriented policing, where there's a requirement for them to not only engage with the public, but to identify what they engage with the public with and then actually follow up on that. So they told the court exactly how they're going to keep that data, what percentage of time officers are expected to do with that data, and how they're going to document it in their system. I believe it's called Brazos, that keeps tabs on all the officers' activity related to community engagement and problem-oriented policing. So they explained that to the court
in December as well. In December, we also saw something come out from the monitoring team, which was the review of investigations and adjudication of fatal pursuit resulting in the death of Tamia Chapman. So if you remember, December, several years back, we had a tragic accident where a young woman in East Cleveland lost her life, Tamia Chapman. The department took quite some time to investigate that. So what the monitor did was audit that investigation, and the monitoring team reviewed the reports and findings produced and relied upon by the CDP, the Office of Professional Standards, and the Civilian Police Review Board. They reviewed video of the relevant Civilian Police Review Board hearings. They looked at transcripts of pre-disciplinary and appeal hearings conducted by the CDP and the Director of Public Safety. And based on the review of those materials, the monitoring team wrote and found that there was an overall systemic failure in the handling of the case investigations. So that's a summary of the report. It's not my words. It's not the Commission's words. That is the monitoring team's words in their introduction to that work. Following that, the city responded to the monitoring team's review. And in their response, they said, an armed carjacking is a violent crime, and the illegal carjacking on December 20th of 2019 was not an isolated event in Cleveland. The tragic death of Tamia Chapman on this date was caused by an armed criminal carjacker who represented an ongoing danger to the community. While the city and the CDP have taken into account the monitor's criticism of the process by which the investigation was conducted, the administrative investigation was initiated pursuant to the policy governing police pursuits, which is GPO 3.2.02. The CDP investigated, developed through a factual record that allowed for reasoned consideration and determination that the pursuit had been justified within the parameters of the existing pursuit policy. So that, again, is the city's response to the monitoring team finding the investigation into that pursuit did not meet the standards of the consent decree. Moving into this year, there was a court filing announcing that Mark Griffin is the new Director of Law, replacing Barbara Langhenry, who retired, who had been managing the consent decree process since the beginning of the consent decree. And then finally, this year, there was another audit done by the monitoring team, which is the lateral recruitment audit. And for those of you who don't know what lateral recruitment is, it's when the Cleveland Division of Police asks for other people who are already officers to come and work for the Cleveland Division of Police. This is noteworthy because there was a lot of controversy around Timothy Lohman, who was a lateral transfer, who was the officer who had was involved in the homicide of Tamir Rice. So it's an important issue to the community. And what they found with the newest class of lateral hires, because the investigation into Timothy Lohman was criticized for the way he was hired at that time, which was 2014. And the CDP files show the investigators consistently reviewed criminal background checks, employment verification, and credit checks. The ways the investigators completed the comprehensive questionnaire template was uneven. The investigators consistently used a different color font to highlight clear problems with the background, which was helpful, though the depth of the questions and details of response from prior employees varied widely. CDP investigators generally received extensive information from prior employers. These other agency files often contain detailed background investigatory details beyond the scope of the CDP background review as documented. It appears that the data in the files from the other agencies were not considered. The reviews show a lack of adherence to the expectations with, and as such, non-compliance with paragraphs 301 to 311, remarking on the consent decree. Generally, the files lack much of the required documentation from paragraphs 308 and 311. The scores are 50%, 27%, and 61% compliant with what was required in the consent decree during these background investigations. None of those meet an acceptable threshold for compliance. The decision to hire illustrates a disregard for the content of the background investigations and the problematic histories of these 3 candidates as reported by the other agencies to which the candidates applied. The information in the files collected by the CDP investigators seemed to be disqualifying for hire, and yet each of these 3 candidates was extended an offer of employment. So there were 3 candidates reviewed, they looked at the process, and that's what they had to remark about it. So 2 significant reports in this quarter from the monitor, as well as an update from the monitor, and some filings related to issue 24. The next status conference, where all of these things will be reviewed before Judge Oliver, is scheduled for March 17th at 3 p.m. We don't yet know if that is going to be live or if it's going to be a Zoom court meeting. So we'll keep you posted if you're signed up for our emails. If you sign in here tonight with your email, you'll get an update on that information. So that is the consent decree happenings. One other note, if you're planning on visiting the CPC offices, we have moved from the 3rd floor to the 4th floor at 3631 Perkins Avenue. So that's just a logistical note. If you did want to stop by and see us, you have to go to the 4th floor now. Please remember to check out our website if you want to stay current, and our social media as well at 216CPC, and then clecpc.org. clecpc.org is our website. Thank you for your time. Lou, I'm going to return it to you.
Thank you, Jason. So we did have a report from the monitor through Jason, channeling them. Thank you. Incidentally, the Tamia Chapman homicide took 23 months before the division released its report to the community on its own evaluation of its own conduct there. At this point, we're going to ask some of the chairs sitting up here to report and tell you what their work groups are focused on and have been doing. First, I'm going to ask Commissioner Logan, the chair of the Accountability Work Group.
Thank you, Lou. Good evening, everyone. I am directly what your opinions are, what your wishes are, what your needs are. So thank you for attending tonight and investing in this process. As the chair for the Accountability Committee, it is always my personal, mission to ensure that the citizens of Cleveland's voices are heard and included in any of the work that we've done. So the first thing I'd like to do is to direct you to the website to look at the accountability report that was released in 2019. That report is important because it has been the foundation for much of the work that we've done moving forward. That report included recommendations on the annual surveys, on training, on hiring, on supervision, as well as what we needed to do to engage our city council, our mayor, and what we can do to further or strengthen the relationships with the community. So I would encourage you to review that report. Read on there, but the great thing about the report is that it's broken into sections where you can just look at the recommendations and weigh in on that, because I would love to hear what you have to say as we continue to move forward on that particular work. With the accountability, our goal is to not just look at what has happened in the past, but to ensure that the process for police reform is a living process that evolves with the needs surveys. Right now, we have our surveys are open. This is an opportunity for us to obtain information from the community, both police officers and civilians, around their specific concerns or needs as it relates to police reform. Our goal is to offer a longitudinal study so that we can evaluate police reform over time, not just taking a snapshot or in the moment of a crisis obtaining information. What we want to do also is to make sure that we're including individuals who have had direct contact with police officers. It is great to have an opinion about police reform as a spectator, as an observer, as a researcher, as someone who's committed to this work. But when you've been arrested, or you've witnessed an arrest, or you have policing in your neighborhood and you've seen things, those opinions are extremely vital to this process because it helps us obtain a firsthand account of not just what happened, but what that does to relationships in real time. So if you've not had an opportunity to complete that survey, please go to our website, clecpc.org, and complete it. And then share it with as many people as you can. One of the things that I will be doing through my agency is my outreach workers will be at barbershops assisting individuals with completing that survey in person. So we will have written copies. All you have to do is go to, the information will be on clecpc.org, so you can see which barbershops we're going to be at, which high schools we're going to be at, or you can contact me directly at my email, llogan@clecpc.org, and we can let you know exactly where we're going to be to make sure that we're getting that feedback. The second thing I want to talk about is the 100 Years Project. If you had an opportunity to attend that event last year, that was remarkable work completed by Jason Goodrick and Ryan Walker, and I was just lucky enough to be a part of that process. I think it's extremely important for us to always look at history. History is difficult because sometimes it's pretty ugly, and it lets us know what we haven't done and what we need to do. And I think with this particular project, not only does it give us a comprehensive look at policing in Cleveland, it really offers us recommendations to connect to what we're doing today. Much of what the community and many police officers want is to improve safety, improve functioning, improve the relationship so that everybody gets to go home regardless of what they're accused of or what they have done. And in order for us to do that, we have to stay abreast of what has worked, what hasn't worked, and then we have to be innovative with the information once we have it. So I would encourage you again to visit our website, clecpc.org/100-years-project, so that you can really see all the work that went into offering you this information. But then after you review it, because it isn't just about us giving you information, because what does that do, right? We want to make sure that we're using the information. So after you visited the website, you reviewed it, even if you review sections of it, email us. Let us know what more we need to do. Let us know what we didn't get right. You know, help us to target the work that we're doing so that it isn't just what we think, but it's what all of us believe is in the best interest of our communities. Finally, our accountability committee meets once a month. We are probably going to move back into twice a month once we set our agenda for 2022. I would love to have you there. We meet virtually, and hopefully, if we can get past COVID at some point, right? We'll go back to public meetings. But our next meeting is March 15th. That is on a Tuesday. It's at 6:00 p.m. And if you follow us on any of our social medias or go to our websites or receive emails, we will email that information out to you. And as always, if you have specific questions and you can't make that meeting, or there's something that you think we should be focusing on in terms of the accountability committee, please email me. Again, that's llogan@clecpc.org. And thank you.
Thank you. You know, for a country that is working so hard to ignore our history, the 100-year study of police reform in Cleveland is really a very valuable tool that answers this anti-factual drive that is pushing our country away from the facts and away from the truth. And the amazing thing, if I may, just make one comment, and I promise I won't comment on everything, that the problems that existed 100 years ago in 1922 with regard to relationship between the community and the police division are many, if not most, of the same issues and problems that still exist here in Cleveland, which is depressing and frightening, but very valuable. So thank you for calling our attention to it. Our next chair reporting is Commissioner Charmin Leon, who is going to be talking about community and problem-oriented policing and that workshop.
Thank you. Good evening again, everyone. So I am a co-chair along with Commissioner Harriet Hadley for the Community and Problem-Oriented Policing Plan Workshop. Over the last year, I've now been on the commission for a year. We have had several of our meetings where we actually walked through the Community and Problem-Oriented Policing Plan with the attendees of the work group every month. So it took us about 3 months to get through the whole plan. For a few meetings, there were no CDP staff in attendance. For our last 2 meetings, we have had CROs, lieutenants, commanders attending, and we are very happy to see CDP once again engaging with the work group and the community members that attend that monthly workshop. We also understand that CPOP is a living document. The community submitted a version of their own regarding CPOP. And we hope that in the coming months this year, that we will be able to revisit elevating that submission so that we are ensuring that community voice is imbued into the documents that are created through these processes. I am now going to ask our extraordinary staff member, Shelley Williams, that helped so much with the CPOP workshop to kind of talk about some of the things that we've done. We have engaged in a problem-solving process with the Director of Safety, Dennis Hill, with CMSD recently. They are looking to start a version of the Dads on Duty, if you guys have seen that, because we had a lot of our babies get into a lot of fights in our high schools as they have come back from quarantine. And we want to do more of that, but we also want to be a support in equipping the community with the understanding of the tenets of community and problem-oriented policing so that we can engage more effectively with our police department. While you're getting that together, I just want to remind you that again, go to the website, our meetings are on the 3rd Wednesdays of the month. The next one is March 17th at 5 p.m. We are still meeting by Zoom, so hope to see you there.
Good evening, everyone. And I just wanted to just briefly update you on one of our newest endeavors. So when I first started working here, I started attending all of the district policing meetings for districts 1 through 5. And as I went into each one of these meetings, I noted how the meetings were run as they related to CPOP. And over the course of the year, I took very copious notes and I brought them back and I shared them with my colleagues and my executive director, and then we compiled those notes into a report. And we submitted that report to the chief of police. At that time it was Chief Calvin Williams, and they reviewed it and disagreed vehemently with the information or contents therein. As a result of that, what they suggested that we do, and this was at the recommendation of Monitor Hassan Aiden, was that we start a task force to help kind of remedy some of the issues in the district policing committee meetings. What we did, we convened a group of members from the Cleveland Police Commission, from the the Community Relations Board, from police, and we met a couple of times throughout the summer and into the fall of last year, but to no avail. So it was a complete bust and waste of time. Nothing came of it. However, I started working just recently with a few members of the Community Relations Board, and we're kind of taking a backdoor approach to working with what Monitor Hassan Aiden wanted us to do in the first place. So we are meeting to put together a series of workshops that will, again, educate the community on CPOP. I understand that the police are being trained currently on CPOP now. And in order for CPOP to work, not only do the officers have to be trained on it, but community members also need to know how they are to participate in problem solving the issues that come up in their community. And so we offer that trainings be administered through or at the DPC level, the district policing level, to the community members that attend those meetings. And we begin training them over a period of time on what CPOP is and, again, how they are to participate. So right now, we are in conversation at the beginning of the conversations, and we hope to, have something in place by the summer. And so that is what we are currently working on in CPOP. And thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Our next speaker is Dr. Megan Testa, Chair of the Officer Wellness Work Group.
So our work group, what we're doing is we're reviewing the EAP policies and the wellness policies that Cleveland Division of Police offers the officers. The consent decree states that the officers need to be well in order to do constitutional policing. So our goal is really to just look at those programs, look at the literature for best practices in these programs, and then make some recommendations. So where we're at is we had developed a survey to survey the officers and get their input about their existing programs, about their needs for their wellness, and we're at the final stage. What we've got together is a final draft, and we're going to meet with stakeholders and discuss steps for moving the draft into a real survey and moving it out to get the officers' opinions and their assessment of their own needs as a needs assessment. And then I'll regroup my group, and we'll go back through the literature and this data that we receive and make some recommendations. So that's where we're at.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce one of our new commissioners, Marquesa Stevens, who came in a little bit late. Our next reporter is Gordon Friedman on the subject of search and seizure, something he and I have been talking about for 50-some years.
That's true, actually. We're fortunate, or the city was fortunate to sit down with us, and we discussed. Thanks. Am I on?
Yes.
I'm off when I'm on. Anyhow, we discussed and made proposals regarding subjects such as search and seizure, investigatory stops, warrantless arrest, and giving of Miranda warnings. We have recently, within the last year, updated those recommendations, submitted them to the city law department, and for the most part, they were rejected, which is obviously no surprise and we did not have a sit-down with them as we had in years before, which is unfortunate. But nevertheless, there were some changes in our recent recommendations on the GPOs dealing with individual rights when they come into contact with law enforcement. We had a particular emphasis on the rights of juveniles and interrogation of juveniles, stop and frisk of juveniles, and the use and seizure of juvenile cell phones, and the role or non-role of parental presence during interrogation. We also had members of the LGBTQ community on our work group, and we focused in on the city's response to LGBTQ members and their interaction, particularly in booking, particularly in the area, quite controversial, of strip searches. And we were told at the time, I think mistakenly, that the city was no longer going to do strip searches. They were going to leave it up to the county sheriff's office. But in fact, the city is doing strip searches upon arrest. And it was our hope to restrict the use of strip searches. But quite frankly, we've been somewhat unsuccessful in that realm. We will not give up on that subject, though. Another area that was important to us was vehicle pursuits. And obviously, the most highly noted vehicle pursuit tragedy was Tamia and her situation and in the pursuit there from one city to another. We have pushed the city. We have made recommendations to the city for changes in their GPO pursuit policy. Again, we received no response. But I should note that at the time, the Inspector General, Chris Vallon, who is presently the county sheriff, interestingly enough, published this document, Review Analysis of Current Vehicle Pursuit Policy, which is excellent, and quite frankly, great recommendations and criticisms, particularly recommendations, are a lot stronger than ours. Again, to our knowledge, we have not heard any response from the city on this report, which is outstanding. It is our hope, fingers crossed, legs crossed, everything crossed, with a new administration, that we might be able to have another sit down with the city, with the law department, and to share with them our views on some of these critical areas and policies. Furthermore, as a kind of outgrowth of the search and seizure work group, we are starting a new work group dealing, kind of a part of a sub-part of search and seizure work group dealing with the police and technology. And in fact, we will be dealing with facial identification and the use of drones in police work. And we are having our first in-person meeting tomorrow at 3 o'clock at the CPC offices. And any of you that are interested in the subject are totally welcome to join us, includes you, Jeff. And
virtually.
Or virtually, yeah, in person and virtually. Some of us will be present. And I might add that for the most part, in our recommendations on the search and seizure work group, we have had input, cooperation from representatives of Black Shield, Richard Jackson, and from the FOP. They've been involved in all of our meetings. And hopefully, Richard, you could show up tomorrow if you can break away from your business these days. Anyhow, so we have a lot of work to do. We've done a lot of work. We've made some progress, not as much as I'd like to see, but hopefully we'll push forward, and who knows what's in store for us in the future.
Thank you, Gordon. Just as a footnote, at least 18 stakeholder monthly meetings, which are gatherings of the city, the monitors, the Department of Justice, and us as part of the city group, we asked for the report on the Tamia Chapman homicide. And at least 18 times, we were refused that report. Yes, ma'am. 3 o'clock.
Our meeting is at 3 o'clock, the technology meeting. 3 o'clock.
Okay, our final work group presentation will be offered by Dr. Terry Eccles, the chair of the work group, which is training and preparing the commissioners of the future.
Thank you, Professor Katz. Again, my name is Dr. Terry Eccles, and the work group that I'm involved with is one of the more newer work groups. So we have affectionately called them the Leaders of Tomorrow, or we call them LOT group. My co-chair is not here. His name is Commissioner Mayo Ngemba. He has some personal matters to attend to. So the Leaders of Tomorrow work group is a work group formerly comprised of about 11 young Cleveland adults who meet to discuss issues that deeply surround solutions to policing related to issues that impact young people in Cleveland. So these solutions will take form in the form of policy recommendations to the CPC, and they can be submitted to the city and other stakeholders as outlined in the consent decree. So the members, they'll voice their opinions and thoughts and personal stories about issues that they and other young people in the community face as related to interactions with the Cleveland Police. Commissioner guidance, interactive workshop, and group research projects are designed to help the members develop confidence, knowledge, and skills needed for the members to become effective problem solvers and encourage future civic engagement. So this work group is comprised of what I call burgeoning professionals. So they initially meet on a monthly basis, like the larger commission does, but then as the work group continued to develop, they've begun to meet on a bi-weekly basis or sometime on an as needed basis, analyzing areas of concern in the community with a younger audience. The work group attends critical information sessions such as DPC meetings, NAACP Urban League meetings, community safety meetings. They were instrumental this past election season conducting mayoral interviews, as well as conferencing opportunities. The lot members, their ages range between 18 and 26, and they're all residents of the city of Cleveland. The members serve a 2-year term. As such, I'm proud to see that one of our members is sitting up front. Samantha Montanez is here. Hey, Sam. One thing I just wanted to go back and kind of back up a little bit, because I know it's important to me in my day job at the county library, is that the work that the support staff does. And so I just want to thank Ryan and Janita and Sarah for all the work that they do, because it's hard for us to do some of this stuff because a lot of us are at our jobs and we kind of call in the office and email them and ask them to do things for us. So that work is very important that they do. But I want to give a special shout out, if you would, to Shelley Williams, because she's kind of been instrumental in the work that I do with the LOT group. So as such, Shelley was instrumental in gaining, if you would, funding to help support a couple of our LOT members that attended a national conference in Tucson, Arizona, with myself and Commissioner Leon. And so that was just really a big thing for Shelley to really go forward and contact a funder to help support this endeavor, because it was important for them to get recognized in Arizona, nationally, and where folks came away from it saying, wow, you guys are doing this work group with these young people in Cleveland. Could you tell us how we can do that in Phoenix? Can you tell us how we do that in Portland? Can you tell us how we do it in Seattle? So that was really important to do that. So I wanted to thank you for that. Moving on, they serve as what we say is like community ambassadors. So there are ambassadors, there are that frontline young folks that are on the ground with their eyes and ears listening to what's going on. Finally, they want to deliver a culminating presentation to the commission and the community members on how the work group has contributed towards building a positive relationship with the youth and the police. And currently, the members are working on a special project where they'll be focusing on a series of community conversations with selected high schools within the 5 districts that they can kind of talk to high school students and gain qualitative data that they can comprise and then either, use that to inform future work that they want to do, whether it be forums, whether they want to print this material, but just talking to these young folks and bringing them to the table, which I think is critical. And I thank the lot members for taking the time and the interest to want to develop that project, because they're the ones that are on the ground. They're the ones that see these young people. We don't see them, but they do. So, Sam, I thank you guys for the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's your turn. I don't know the procedure for questions that may be coming in online. Someone will please tell them to me, but we can begin with you folks in the room. Please come up to the microphone, state your name, and we welcome your comment, Mrs. Bickerstaff.
Of course, I'm a family member. It's been 20 years since Craig Bickerstaff was killed by police. Thank God for issue 24. There's a couple of things that I want to bring up. Thank you for the work that you do. I met you before, and I really appreciate you being involved and you care, and I really appreciate that. However, there's a couple of things that I want to bring up, and we talked about this with the CPOP. The families and I, Samaria, Alicia, and myself, worked on CPOP back in 2018, and we did a press conference on it. It's on YouTube. So we want to know why our information that we worked on for 8 weeks at the CPC office, well, that was not even recognized. And we're in this work to make changes. And that information, it wasn't even, they didn't even use it. So we're not in this to waste our time. We're in it to make changes so we can have changes within the police department. And it wasn't used. And I'm disappointed with that because we worked extremely hard on that. I got the proof. I have every document of everything that we wrote, every date that we met, and it's not even been used. And this is one of the reasons why we push forward on the issue 24. Because it seems like, and I'm not saying all of you, because I do know all of you, the majority of you, do hard work for this community and for us. But without the families, this can't go forward. The families have to be involved with this in everything that you do. Everything. And I'm just kind of disappointed about that because we work really hard on that. And I got the proof of that.
I accept your disappointment. Anybody have any explanation? I would think, Brenda, if you would resubmit that.
I submitted it to Jason. I submitted it to the monitor.
You take care of it.
I submitted it, I believe I gave Shelley a copy of it.
Okay.
She wasn't aware of it. Our press conference is on YouTube that we did.
Commissioner Logan would like to
So
speak.
you are correct. In 2018, the families worked on the recommendations for CPOP as well as the commission. And we met with the city about 3 times trying to get those recommendations included, and they were never accepted. This was a long process. We still never, many of the recommendations we made to them and showed the graph of what the families wanted, what were our recommendations, where we thought they could improve their recommendations, were just simply not accepted. So this is part of why I think with Sergeant Leon and Commissioner Hadley trying to go back to the original CPOP plan and ask them to move towards what we were actually working towards, and we just still haven't gotten to that level. Now, hopefully, as you stated in your report, they're looking at that now. But as you know, that has been a consistent problem with making recommendations and not having them included without any reason or rational justification for why they're not including that. So it isn't that we didn't make the recommendations or we didn't put that information forward. It just simply was not accepted, along with many other recommendations that were made for CPOP plan.
As you heard Gordon say, we made recommendations pertaining to the search and seizure policies that they just summarily I understand. I understand. We're not there yet.
No, I understand.
It's 100 days since the election,
Right, I understand.
but we're not there yet. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners, Commission. I'd like to thank everybody for coming and being here and the work that you do. I'm David Hammonds, I'm an investigator in the Office of Professional Standards. I wanted to clarify two things. One, when Administrator Goodrick was reading about or speaking about the report in the Chapman investigation, that there were two distinct reports. It's true, we do know that. And that there was information from both reports that, or particularly the one from the Office of Professional Standards, that we felt that the citizens needed to hear about. There was information in the division's investigation. My suggestion and my recommendation would be that we try and transition or move from being critical about it to being constructive about it, and start working with each other and doing some things that that are consistent with the spirit in the letter of the consent decree with the division. It doesn't necessarily have to always be adversarial, and that if we could collaborate on some things and find out what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong, and try and correct them and work with each other instead of against each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, would you like to say anything?
No, I'm good. We know each other very well.
Okay. Thank you.
You understand what now? We want to know that conversation. I would like for you to answer that.
One thing I'm going to answer is we have a working relationship
Okay,
that we
what
move
about
on.
the working relationship with the community?
Excuse me.
I was talking about Mr. Hammonds, that's what I'm talking about. Then you go ask another question then.
That's the question. What is,
Mrs.
well, see, that's what I'm saying.
Mrs. Bickerstaff,
What?
we're having
He
a,
needs to be off that commission and off the force.
well, thank you, but we can't have back and forth discussions.
Okay. Yeah, he laughing, I'm not laughing. I know, that's the
Are
problem.
there any other questions?
That's the problem. That's why your cops do what they do.
Mrs. Bickerstaff, please.
Okay, these are questions coming in from online. And so I have two of them. The first one is, can you elaborate a bit more about what happens to the commission relative to issue 24? Will it continue? And I guess it refers to the commission.
Okay, I think I can answer that. We've been waiting. We've been watching the phone. It hasn't rung. We understand the new administration is designing issue 24 commission. We will continue as the Cleveland Community Police Commission on the projects we are working on, and will continue to work on them so long as we are the commission. I've heard, I don't know if it's correct, that the administration will simply at some point ask for applications for the new commission rather than designate us as the issue 24 commission. But we are continuing to work on these projects and these work groups that we heard tonight. Some of us may apply, some of us may not. The new commission will be selected by the mayor, and each member must be approved by a majority of council.
Thank you for that. And I do have one final question. Has the Accountability Committee talked at all about the Truth Commission as a way to begin meaningfully acknowledge the historical and present pain that the police system has caused?
So we've had several community conversations when the consent decree initially began to discuss the issue of trust, trying to get to a place of truth and reconciliation. In order for that to happen, you have to have administration who wants to engage in that process of listening without needing to defend, because I think sometimes individuals who serve the city or who are serving with CDP get lost in needing to defend their actions as opposed to understanding and empathizing with why community members feel the way that they do. We haven't been able to get to that place because everyone wants to be right, to be quite honest. I think sometimes when we want to be right, then we lose any hope of making progress and getting to reform. I would love for us to get to a place where we can discuss things and have some resolution. But if it's always going to be defending or it's always going to be you're the devil, then we're not going to get anywhere, because neither of those positions are helpful, productive, and they certainly don't help anyone heal. So, like I said, we had a couple of those. It may be time to revisit that. We have a new administration. There's a lot of new things that are happening in the community that are new for a pandemic, new for Operation Legend. So, you know, as much as we want to continue to talk about what has happened, we do need to get to a place where we're talking about what is happening with people every single day that doesn't, I guess, was never captured in the consent decree or even within that DOJ report.
Thank you, Commissioners Katz and Logan.
We have time for another question or comment. Sergeant Jackson.
You stated that you have Chris Vallan's report when he was the IG. And the consent decree required the city to at least listen to the IG. It appears that that old administration didn't want to do anything about it. Have you resubmitted it to the new administration, or actually, I guess it's still the same safety director, isn't it? Well, can you resubmit it to him and see what his official statement will be now?
Absolutely. We have not resubmitted it. It makes all the sense in the world to do that. I mean, but we, quite frankly, Richard, Sergeant, retired, we are waiting for them to respond to our recommendations on vehicle pursuits. They haven't responded to us, let alone Chris Vallan's report. But your suggestion makes all the sense in the world, and we'll do that.
Mrs. Bickerstaff, would you come to the mic?
Ms. Rice couldn't be here tonight, so she wants to know, when are they going to come into 100% compliance?
When are we going to come into
When the police department, with the report from the DOJ, I believe we had read in the paper, it was at 37%. The compliance with the consent decree of the information and the things that were going to be implemented with their training, it was 37%. So she wants to know, when will it be 100%?
Great question.
And the
We'd all.
consent decree has been here how long? 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 7 years.
Thank you, ma'am. We would like the same information. We would like to know when they actually begin the training under the new policies and when the monitors start evaluating that training. We don't have that information. Of course. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Ms. Pelfy.
Hi, my name is Rosie Palfy. I'm a member of the City of Cleveland Mental Health Response Advisory Committee, and it was created as one of the mandates under the consent decree. So the Police Commission has everything under its purview with the exception of crisis intervention. And before I get started, I want to say I'm glad to see you, Mr. Fulmer. I thought we might have to put out a bolo or put your face on the back of a milk carton. So it's good to see you. Seriously, I'm not being sarcastic. So anyway, I don't know if you saw in the news, but in November, there was a story, early November, I discovered when we were reviewing the crisis policies that 17 words were missing from the middle of a bullet point in the crisis response policy. And this language was specifically added for people who were willing to voluntarily go to the hospital, weren't violent, weren't accused of committing a crime, but might not feel comfortable going to the hospital in his own car. We wanted to give officers more tools in the toolbox, possibly prevent a future tragedy like the Tanisha Anderson case. So more than 3 months have gone by and we haven't gotten any answers. First we were told, I don't know, Dr. Testa, if you were at our meeting in January, but they didn't even put it on the agenda. And when I asked about it, I actually got yelled at for talking to a reporter, which was ridiculous, especially considering that there was a reporter in the room. But we were told it was an innocent mistake. So 2 weeks ago, I went to a safety committee meeting, city council, and I asked. And the safety director had a different story. He said that it was a minor policy adjustment due to the diversion center, that EMS can't transport people to the diversion center. Made absolutely no sense. So I have an email that shows this was changed at least 2 years ago. And so the reason why this is important is because I don't understand why it's not like a 4-alarm fire. Every single policy that was submitted to the court should be checked to see if the city has changed it. And one of the reasons why this is important is because we do crisis intervention training, okay? And if there's a substantial change in the policy, the officers have to be trained on it. They're going to be held responsible for it. You know, so I think this is something that you guys should be aware of and concerned of. And also, issue 24, if you read it, the words crisis intervention don't appear anywhere in there. So what that means is, as far as training and policies go, it's not excluded. So I want you all to be mindful of that. I can tell you the MRAC has failed the residents of Cleveland. We're not doing our job. A lot of people, they all care, but they're afraid to speak up. So I just hope that when things get rolling, that you guys will be mindful of that.
Yeah, thank you. I would also hope that your comments on transparency don't get lost, that as we move forward, some mechanism, whether it's through the commission or whether it's through the monitors, that every policy that's been submitted will be available on a website, and any action or inaction will be noted as well. Dr. Testa, did you want to respond?
Just, Rosie, I appreciate you. And the mental health stuff's very important. It's why I'm here. And we know that people who have mental health issues and addiction run in with the police. And I think that both the individuals who have those illnesses and the police don't want to run in that manner. They'd rather that those individuals get the care they need in the appropriate place in a medical facility rather than through police and through jail. So I'm hopeful that those efforts continue. You know, I appreciate you and I thank you for bringing it up.
I do have another community question from online. And this is for all commissioners. This citizen wants to know, what can the commission hang their hats on? What, after this time span, have they accomplished? Recommendations and accomplishments are two different things.
Fair question. What are the recommendations and accomplishments of this commission since its organization?
I would answer part of that.
Would you start?
Sure. I believe that the search and seizure work group that engaged the city made some substantial inroads in changing the policy of the city of Cleveland regarding search and seizure, which is a kind of an umbrella of getting down to police engagement with individuals, with minorities, with the people of different genders. And I would not say that our impact was immense, but I think it was considerable, and it's something I think we are proud about. And I also think that there's work to do, and hopefully we can make some further improvements. Having said that, changing policy does not mean necessarily changing practice, and the practice has to be followed through training and education of the police community.
And discipline. One other accomplishment I'd like to call to your attention. Former Commissioner Gail Maxwell, who was the representative of the Fraternal Order of Police on the commission, headed a work group called the Homicide Victims Work Group. And through her efforts, services were initiated and provided, I believe provided, to families of homicide victims so that the city is more proactive and seeking out people. I do know that the father of Desmond Franklin, who was killed by an off-duty police officer, I'm not sure what off-duty means anymore, was never approached and was never offered any of these services.
Cooperate with the commissioners for them to be able to do their jobs, and I can speak on this.
You might want to go to the microphone.
I can speak on this as a sister of a brother that was killed by police. If the city do not give them and cooperate of the information that they ask them, then how are they going to be effective for us? Because we wrote numerous of letters on their behalf. They asked the city turn over like 5 years of disciplinary records. It took them almost 2 years. And we, the families, wrote the letters to the judge. Now, we know that we're not a part of the lawsuit, but we write letters to the judge quite often so he can know, so Judge Oliver would know what the city is doing. Now, of course, that was the old administration. So hopefully the new administration, since we're moving forward, will cooperate and give the commission what they need, the tools, so they can be effective for the community.
Thank you. From your lips to Justin Bibb's ear. Let me just say, I think everyone on the commission is very much aware of the efforts of the families and have appreciated the efforts of the families.
I'll just say this, because my, say this politically correct, don't laugh. When I hear a term or a word like accomplished, it sounds like done. We're over. Something was met and we can move forward. The process for police reform is living, because every single day the police reform is a human position, it's a human job, it's a human interaction, it's a human reaction, it's a human experience. So there's no such thing as accomplished when you're talking about a human experience. That's first and foremost. And I know I'm a social worker, so I'm gonna come at you from that perspective, right? What I would ask you is, instead of thinking about what was accomplished, because this is what the CDP does, well, we accomplished that training, so we never have to talk about it again. We should never be looking at police reform in terms of we met something and now we're done. What I look at instead is, what did we expand? What did we introduce? What did we challenge? What did we motivate to, oh, wow, you can't just do this thing here. You have to look at it a different way. And in that regard, I know that we've made headway and we've made progress. I would encourage community members who are looking for an end date to this to please stop. That is not what we should be looking for. We should be looking for this to always be an evolutionary process that ebbs and flows with the needs of the community. And if we are doing that, then that means we should never feel accomplished. We should always feel we've made progress. We should always feel that we've made an investment that matters. So I've been serving since 2016, and I've done a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of headaches. And what I know is this is about endurance. And that's the problem. People lack endurance. They want something to be done in 6 months or a year. We're tired. We don't want to talk about it anymore. If you really are committed to police reform and transforming community and policing relationships, then you better grow endurance, okay? Stay the course, because next year is going to be another issue, and the year after that is going to be another issue. So this is not going to be a one stop and we're done. This is okay, we met the consent decree, but guess what? Now it's 2022. And we're in the midst of a pandemic, and we've had Operation Legend, and we have kids who have nowhere to go. What are we going to do in terms of policing that way? So accomplished is not what we should be looking for. An investment is what we should be looking for. And every single commissioner has served has made an investment. Every single family member, every community member, every single volunteer has made an investment of time, energy, intellect, and resources. And that's what we should be looking at. So my 2 cents on that.
Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. Shelley, do you have one more question or not?
I believe it is from the same community member who's asking.
Speak up, please.
I believe it is from the same community member, or maybe a different one, who says, there are measurable goals, though, yes? And indeed, there are.
Okay. Thank you. Did anybody want to comment on that? On that comment, we will move to the next order of business, which is the election of 2022 co-chairs. We're a little late, but it's required that it be done in a public meeting, and this is the first public meeting. Let me just tell you the process that we will use. Each member of the commission has the opportunity to nominate 1 or 2 members, 1 or 2 co-chairs, including himself or herself. We have some commissioners participating online? We do not at this time. So the election will be by those who are present in the room. So after the nominations are made, each candidate will have no more than 2 minutes to talk about why she or he should be the co-chair, a co-chair for next year. We will elect 2. All right, nominations are open.
I'd like to nominate Latoya Logan and Professor Katz.
Second that nomination.
Thank you. We needed a second, I forgot. Anybody else, please? I think we should probably follow through and still explain why each of us wants to be a co-chair and will serve. So would you go first?
Oh. So, police report, my entire career has been, has been in criminal justice. Oh. It's okay. Supervision with youth who are involved. I still continue to serve on the Ohio Department of Youth Services 21 and age and over committee. So this is important to me because how we treat individuals who come in contact with police officers is reflective of what will happen in so many areas of our community. Policing isn't about arresting individuals. It isn't about an us versus them. It's truly about how do we protect and serve our communities. So, with that being said, I just feel like we're at a critical point with the consent decree where we're now moving into this evaluation period, and I think that we need to have a strong hold on accountability. That's always been something of importance to me, and it isn't just about who's right and who's wrong. It's more about what isn't working and what do we need to do to make things work better. And some of that is collaboration, and some of that is some people need to not be in the positions they're in. These are just facts. Everybody isn't perfect, right? But it's being objective about that, making recommendations that make sense about that, and hopefully as we move forward, being able to implement some of the practices and policies that just are good policing. Police officers want to go home, and so do civilians, regardless of what they're accused of, regardless of what we think about them. Everybody deserves to go home to their families and be tried if that's what the outcome is. So I think that that's what police reform is about, social justice at the end of the day. And social justice requires that we make an investment, that we are engaged in truth telling, and that we are engaged in innovative practices. So I just want to continue to do that work.
Thank you. I have been teaching and writing and working for police reform in Cleveland for 55 years. There have been good days, thank you. There have been good days and bad days. There haven't been a great many accomplishments. There have been more losses than accomplishments. I think the entire justice system is corrupted. I think the entire justice system is based on injustice in our country. And I think we are in the group that needs some of the greatest change. I think one of our greatest problems, one of our 5 greatest problems in this country is police racism. And that's what I would dedicate myself to working on. I have the greatest respect for LaToya, and I do look forward to working with her. That's really all I have to say. Thank you. Say anything? Okay. I did. Marquessa Stevens.
Okay, and she's from where?
I am from Cleveland Public Library. I've worked for Cleveland High School District. Tri-C. So I've been all over, and I've probably seen many of your faces and your children's faces. And that's why I'm here. You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Each commissioner has a ballot. Please write 2 names, 1 or 2 names.
Is that done? Haven't we done it already?
Make a motion.
I move by acclamation that Lou Kantz and LaToya Logan are our next co-chairs. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Taken care of.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, commissioners.
Congratulations to both of you.
We hope you who have come here tonight and those of you who are online will continue to make yourselves heard, to let us know when you don't think we're doing enough. I really want to second what LaToya said. It's not accomplishments. We're never going home. It's progress. And hopefully, with the new administration and the eventual new commission, we will see more of that progress. At this point, I'd like to ask if there's any new business from any of the commissioners. If not, I will recognize my own motion to adjourn. And thank you all for coming. We do appreciate your presence and your participation. Thank you.